Tuesday morning edition of our reaction show for Monday Night Raw. As I said, sometimes we will have to do this on Tuesday mornings versus doing it right after the show, which means that I know this will not be a large crowd for this particular edition of the Raw reaction that we usually do here. Started doing after WrestleMania 40, but we're going to have some fun with it and see what we get out of this. So I'm going to let you guys hop on in. As I said, I don't expect a huge crowd for this one, but it was an entertaining edition of Raw. There were a lot of interesting sort of developments. I think in particular, we know that one of those was Rhea Ripley vacating the women's championship, and now, as she said, on the bench for a couple months. Not ideal. We were talking about all the things with Rhea Ripley about, how is she going to be able to carry this title maybe into next year's WrestleMania for WrestleMania 41. Not going to be the case now that she has had to hand this thing over due to injury. And, of course, they're playing into the Liv Morgan stuff. They did the thing with Nia Jax, saying she's going to come after the title. She also kind of teased, saying that even anyone that came over in the draft would not be able to keep her from the championship. So I'm curious to see who maybe they pair her with moving forward. But, yeah, that was, I'd say, certainly one of the biggest developments on the show was Rhea Ripley having to give up the championship. And, of course, the other part was what finished the show, and that was Chad Gable snapping on Sami Zayn after Zayn retained the Intercontinental Championship. Good match, as we would have thought, between these two, right? And so I thought that was a significant thing because we kept saying, would it just be as easy as Gable being the person to snap? Would they do something where, maybe they're kind of sneaking one over on us and it's Sami, the one that's up to something? But we knew that wouldn't be the case in Montreal. You knew that if you're going to do this with Gable, you do it in Montreal, you get the most sort of heat behind it, right? So, I think it made sense for them to do that there and go ahead, because now clearly this is something where they're going to build towards a rematch, and now you have kind of the motivation for Gable where it's, all right, like Chad Gable was just trying to continue to win this championship that has eluded him for all this time, and now, it's a matter of, can he do it? Can he be the one to take the belt off of Sami? He wanted to take it off of Gunther. He's had multiple opportunities now, and this finally just caused him to snap. That's how they were playing it up on commentary. Michael Cole and such is like, Sami just has lost it because, he's been wanting this opportunity and he still can't basically get the job done. So I thought that was very interesting. Good way to do it. Sami goes over and embraces his family, and that's when Gable snaps, hits the release German, and then he puts the ankle lock on him while he's standing on the top rope. I thought it was a great visual. So that definitely heats things up here moving forward for sure with this whole thing with Gable and Sami. And as we said, didn't know exactly how this would play out, but pretty clear direction now moving forward. So what's up, Elijah? Yeah, I know there's not going to be a lot of people in this reaction one, but I wanted just to sort of give some quick thoughts on Raw because, as always, if we do it right after the show, quite a few people in here. Doing it the next morning, sometimes my schedule is just not going to allow that to do it on the same night. So we will plan on doing SmackDown on Friday, though, right after the show. So I will tell you guys that if you're watching after the fact here. But if you are jumping in, let me know what you thought about Raw. And like I said, I thought, the Gable, Sami Zayn thing was certainly that and the Rhea Ripley thing were the biggest things on the show. I know Cody came out, but in all honesty, right, like there wasn't a whole lot for Cody. It's just, hey, Cody's on the show, and there wasn't a lot to sort of add to anything really Cody said, just kind of hyping up that he's ready for either AJ Styles or LA Knight. He also, had a little bit of mention with The Rock, saying that he thinks The Rock has more than one match in him and how they're going to bleed together and all this. So Cody didn't really have a lot to say there. Of course, he did sort of tease having Jay's back, but Jey said he wanted to do it by himself. So that led to the Judgment Day going after, Jey following the match with Balor. And so Cody didn't have a chance to save Jay's back there, but that was one that not a lot for Cody on the show, but that's understandable. I mean, they're building towards the winner of AJ Styles and LA Knight, and there's not a lot you can do on Raw other than him just bring up The Rock just for a very tiny moment, right? So, And I also thought Damian Priest, like they played up that interaction with the Judgment Day. They sort of, gave Rhea her send-off, and now I think it adds to a lot of interesting things. It almost feels like Judgment Day is in a similar scenario as the Bloodline, where you had a situation where, all right, Rhea is the Roman of the group, right? So Rhea is now going away. She's injured. She's going away for a little bit. They all gave her the hug. They embraced, and they sent her away, basically. And now it's like, now it's time to see what the kids are really up to, right? Now we see what everyone's true motivations are within the Judgment Day, and we kind of saw that with Priest looking a little confused whenever JD, Dom, and Balor all attacked Jey afterwards. You kind of saw Priest, stepping up and questioning them and all that stuff. So it's sort of a little bit of interesting and similar dynamic, I think, to what's going on with the Bloodline right now. But we'll see how that plays out. Because, we've said from the start, you feel like this is eventually going to come out of this with Priest being the guy that's cheered. And it's just that jealousy, they teased it in that backstage segment when it just was Priest and Balor all by themselves. I think we're definitely working towards the Priest and Balor match for the title. It's just when do they get there? But they definitely teased that on the show, and I thought that was another, pretty big development. So yeah, that's the thing. We're in that post WrestleMania 40. It's not a lull like it usually is, but you've got to know that you're not going to be able to match exactly what they were doing up to WrestleMania 40, right? It's just it's a different situation now. The Rock's not there. You don't have all your big players there. Seth's not there. Becky's not there. Drew had the one backstage segment on the show. Punk's not there. Cody not really doing a whole lot. He's waiting for the challenger on SmackDown. So it's one of those periods where it just happens, especially when you have all those big names that are not currently, on Raw doing significant things to lead towards their WrestleMania match or anything. So I think that's what you just kind of expect. You're going to get some storyline development on this show, but there's going to be some stuff that just is kind of there to be there. But I think what I like about what Triple H does is it does seem like everything sort of has a purpose, and you're at least playing into, even if they're smaller storylines, everything has a purpose as to why they're doing it. Even the women's tag stuff, right? The one with Chelsea Green, she finally gets a win, and it's like, yeah, hey, she's finally getting off the losing streak and all that. The other women's tag where you kind of have Indy Hartwell sort of embracing the dark side a little bit. So everything has a purpose to it, and I think that's what I like is they're not just matches to be matches, right? There are some reasoning behind it. It's just, can you get people invested in some of these storylines that are not the main event type storylines? And so that's what we'll see. And of course, new tag team championships. What did you guys think of the tag team titles? I saw a mixed reaction on some people want more of the old school, tag team title look. Some people are fine with all the belts kind of having the same sort of theme in terms of the actual presentation of it and everything. But I didn't mind it. Thought it was fine. So I'm more of an old school belt type person to where I always like the old stuff. But hey, I thought they were fine. So Miz and Truth now know who their next opponents are going to be. DX, DIY, that is. And so, yeah, I thought it was kind of funny, R-Truth mistaking Triple H for Tommaso Ciampa. I thought that was great. But yeah, new tag team titles for the champions. And so they're obviously setting up that match with DIY, which I assume that's probably a Backlash match at this point, right? So, yeah, so I thought that was another thing. Again, I'm looking down my notes here, and I'm thinking, okay, every single match, there was a reason for every match. There was a purpose, there was an angle, there was a storyline that came out of every single match. And so if you can do that, knowing that this is kind of going to be the letdown period for some fans after WrestleMania because you just don't have, your hottest stories of the year, I think that's fine. So I think it's perfectly fine to see what you can get out of this. So, yeah, what's up, Cameron? Thanks for hopping in. Yeah, like I said, guys, usually this is basically a comment live stream that we do, but I knew there wasn't going to be a lot of people on this one. We're doing it very early on Tuesday morning, just because scheduling-wise, I could not do it right after Raw on Monday, but as I said, we will plan to do SmackDown right after SmackDown on Friday. So we'll try to get back to the rhythm of the way we've been doing it, but I had to catch up on Raw a little bit late, so I wasn't able to do the show right afterwards. So, yeah, like I said, I thought it was a solid edition of Raw. I just mentioned, I think the way that they advanced a lot of stuff, I feel like that's always important. Because it's not even like you're not Raw after WrestleMania, you're like the second Raw after WrestleMania, which is sort of that spot where you just sometimes don't expect a lot to happen each year. But I thought just being able to move stuff forward the way they move stuff forward, the Rhea stuff, the Judgment Day stuff, the Sami and Chad stuff. Like I said, you've even got some of the other things what you have with Jey here. Even Jey, acknowledges the fact that Jimmy got attacked. They had the little interview segment before, and I thought that was good too, because you kind of had the tease that Jey was trying to say, man, I tried to get Jimmy to come with me. I told him to come with me. So you see a little bit of that. Jay's starting to, the wheels are turning in Jay's head a little bit. He's like, all right, I got to get my brother here. Like, I know we just had our match. I know I just speared the man off the stage onto a table, but that brings us back together, right? Not just because I love him. That's what we do, right? People we love, we just spear him off a stage onto a table. But, all seriousness, I think you were seeing it there. You guys have watched the videos, I think we're definitely leading towards the Usos reuniting. They got to go against this rogue bloodline, and then you're going to get Roman come back and the originals, the day one originals, as it was coined in one of our live streams last week. That's what you get here, I think, coming out of all this. So, yeah. Hey, appreciate you joining. Always good to see you in here. Yeah, hope you guys are doing well today. I know this is an early one. We don't normally do live streams this early in the morning for some people, but I know there are people watching around the world, so you could be watching this anywhere, and it may be a different time. But here in the United States, it's very early, but I wanted to make sure I got this stream up for you guys since we didn't get a chance to do it right after Raw. So, so that was, again, I thought a good edition of Raw. And I like by the way, I don't know if you guys caught it. What I really liked the most, maybe on this show, more than anything else, what they did after Jey left ringside. So he hit someone, I don't remember if it was JD or Dom. He goes all the way up through the crowd, right? They follow him with the camera all the way through the crowd. Then he goes up into the concourse area. He's going by the concession stand. There's got the popcorn over there, all this other stuff. He keeps going all the way to the entrance. And there's Sami Zayn, and he gives him the story about, hey, I walk into this, entrance and all that. Like, he gives him the big story, right? And then Sami makes his entrance from there. So it's the same camera shot the entire time. I know that's like the technical aspect is it's a little much, but I thought that was fantastic because we talk about like the difference now with Kevin Dunn out of the mix. So like you have a completely different presentation. We've seen all the different things WWE has done, whether it's some of the visuals they have when they're doing the championship matches, like they get that just incredible camera shot of each of the competitors, even Samantha Irvin in there. And then you have something like this where the camera follows Jey all the way from the ring. It's one continuous shot, and then you have Sami make his entrance, and you get that, like, not only you get Jey going up into the fans, and you see all the fans high-fiving and all this stuff, but you get that Montreal feel, right, where Sami has to come through everybody. They're all high-fiving him. They're patting him on the back as he's coming down. And, that was tremendous. So those are the little bitty things you guys know that I love. And I thought it was fantastic. So it really added to the overall atmosphere of the match, I thought. Really made Sami look like just a massive star, which he is, but especially in Montreal, he is for sure. So, yeah, I assume, Cameron, you're probably not the only one. I feel like a lot of people are probably having to catch this at work. So, I'm not going to try to make this a regular thing, but like I said, it is something where some weeks we'll have to do it the following morning. We may not do it this early most mornings when we do it that way, but I had to do it this morning for some scheduling purposes. So, nonetheless, but if you guys are hopped in, let me know what you thought of Raw. I know Cameron's already weighed in, but what did you think of this edition of Raw leading towards Backlash? As we know, SmackDown on Friday. We assume we're going to get some more development with the Bloodline. And then, of course, we know Bayley's going to take on Naomi. And they also announced some stuff for next week's Raw. Of course, you have the tag team match coming out of Ricochet helping Andrade. So they're going to team together in that one. So that will be an interesting one on Raw next week. And, there's a lot of stuff to see. And Sheamus, we haven't even mentioned Sheamus yet. Sheamus made his return. So I'm curious to see what they do with Sheamus. You guys know my thought on that. I think that Sheamus has to go after that Intercontinental Championship. I feel like Triple H, sort of with the history, he knows that he probably wants to give Sheamus that one title he's never won. And I feel like having Sheamus, to me, it seems like, I don't know if you want to do Sheamus versus Sami, but I feel like you are going to get to that situation where maybe Gable wins the title eventually, and maybe it's Sheamus is the one who takes that title off of heel Chad Gable at that point. Maybe that's the direction they go, because I do feel like Triple H wants to give Sheamus that final championship, right? And I feel like the Intercontinental Championship is just the one that makes the most sense because he's not won that one. And so, I think I could definitely see that happening, whether it's Sheamus versus Sami, which the dynamic doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you did get Gable to get the belt off of Sami at some point, Sheamus and Gable would be tremendous. I feel like we've seen that match before. I just don't remember. It all runs together sometimes. So, yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. So, all right, let's see here. So, really, Bearded Dragon back in the mix here. Always appreciate you joining. Like Rhea did. Yeah, I mean, that was... I thought the Rhea thing was interesting. Because, people were bringing up, like, does she really have to vacate the belt? I mean, you've had Roman and such that hasn't defended the belt or hasn't had to wrestle a lot. But again, I think it's the extent of the injury. And, two, I think the reason why this situation, like maybe in another situation, they wouldn't necessarily had to have Rhea vacate the belt. But they have a story built in. Like, now you can take Liv Morgan and you can turn her into the bad guy here. And it's like, okay, she is the one who... unfortunately, cost Rhea this great chance. And we know, too, like, Rhea's in the heel faction, but everybody's cheering Rhea. So it's one of those things where you can kind of play off of this with Liv. And as I said earlier, they're playing all this with Nia Jax, too, which we'll see what they do with her. I think they were more with Nia. It seemed like they were teasing somebody's going to come over from SmackDown. My first thought was Jade, but the way Nia said it is like, no, that's not going to happen because I don't think Jade's going to win the title. And that's kind of the way Nia set it up, was basically saying whoever comes over, in the draft or whatever, they're not going to be able to take the title from me. So it's not going to be Jade. Jade's not going to be the new champion. But I thought that was an interesting way to phrase it. So we'll see maybe who Nia has to go through thinking it's her title. But Liv, of course, is still there. We've had the stuff between Nia and Liv. Yeah, Bearded Dragon, just to add to this, no, I all they did was sort of set up that Liv's coming after the title. She said, it's her title. Her revenge tour is not going to end until she wins the championship. Then they had the little backstage segment with Nia, who said basically the same thing, that no one, whether it's, she brought up different names, Liv, Becky, I don't remember who else she said. And then she kind of added in the mix, whoever comes over from the draft, no one's going to keep her from the title. That's basically what she said. So they clearly positioned those two as part of whatever they're going to do. My guess would be they're probably doing some kind of multi-woman match. That would be my guess based off of this, because, or maybe it's, maybe it's a triple threat, fatal four-way, yeah, like I said, I mean, maybe that's probably what happens. So I doubt it's just a simple one-on-one match. I don't know if it's going to be a tournament of any sort, but I think where this probably gets a little complicated because of the draft, really, when you think about it. Like, this is where I think it may mess up some things for them. I mean, there's no doubt, because, I'm sure they had some big stuff in line for Rhea here coming off of WrestleMania 40, but I feel like they're going to set this up after the draft and see who comes out of it. Here's a good question too. Like, I don't know, unless you guys have seen it. I have not seen it yet. I've kind of been out of the loop a little bit. I haven't looked at like any news stories or anything since before Raw yesterday. So I don't know if they said exactly. I mean, Rhea said a few months. Then I think Cole brought it up on commentary. He said quite a few months. So you never know, like, how they phrase stuff. I always try to read into that, because I'm like, okay, one person said this, one person said that. But it sounded like at least several months is the way I took that. So, yeah, because, right, if it's like a month or something like that, you probably don't vacate the championship. You probably just find a way around it. So it would have had to have been serious enough to where they thought it made sense to take the title off of her, and could not get away with her not defending the title for a certain amount of time. So, like we said, kind of the Roman situation, where people are always kind of picking on Roman, of course, because, you didn't have him on the show every week, and you didn't have those regular title defenses and all that. They could have still probably kept Rhea on TV in the mix, right, to be able to do it. But if the Judgment Day kind of gave her send-off, right? So, to me, that means they're not going to have her on TV, which probably also means there's some kind of, okay, yeah, so if it's this long, Cameron bringing it up here, my guess coming out of that, and this would make sense, is like, you're basically sending Rhea off knowing that she probably has to get surgery or something, right? That's kind of the way I saw that, to where there's going to be like rehab, maybe significant rehab involved. And so otherwise they would have just kept her on the show some way. Like, she could have just cut promos or all that, right? But if it's something like this, like, they're going to have to send her away for a little bit. And that's why I think they would have did it. So, yeah, Cameron, by the way, rated on Raw 9 out of 10. I thought it was a really good show. So, again, they're not all going to be WrestleMania 40 level, but I thought it was a good show. So, yeah, see, the Jade thing, and this is why, this was the video I did. I think Jade and Bianca are going for the tag team titles. I feel like they've definitely set that up now. You got Naomi going for Bayley's title on SmackDown on Friday, which I don't think she's going to win that. So do you put those three back together? And I saw someone mention, like, for the old school fans, do it like the Freebird rules, where you have those three together and just a combination of the two are, going for the tag titles or defending the tag titles or whatever. I don't know if I like that as much. I think just do Bianca and Jade because what happens too with that is you do Bianca and Jade as a tag team, they win the titles, then it's wrestling. We all expect somebody to turn on the other at some point. And so you're adding that, possibility to the mix, and I think that makes a lot of sense because we've said it many times. Like, they didn't do the Rumble spot for there was a reason behind that, to have these two get the huge crowd pop that they had. They're going to do that one-on-one match at some point. You guys know that I made my predictions, which could completely change now. If you remember, I did my early WrestleMania 41 predictions, whatever that last week, I guess. And I had Rhea versus Bianca, but I said it could be Rhea versus Jade. It could be Bianca versus Jade. Any of those combinations between those three, I think, makes a lot of sense. But now it's like, if Rhea's out for a while, how does that change what they do next year at WrestleMania and all that? And I think you're also just waiting to see if Jade gets to that point where they feel comfortable in her being in a main event type level match at a WrestleMania, in a one-on-one match, not a 6-woman tag, not a tag team. But that's why they're doing this now, is to give her that experience, put her with Bianca, put her with Naomi, and let her get that in-ring experience to get her hopefully ready for that spot. Because, Bianca versus Jade, like, that is a main event level type match that they can promote. So I don't think it's going to be, second from the top or anything. Like, it's going to be probably a very high-profile match. And they probably want to do it at WrestleMania. So, we'll find out what happens there. So, I think, look, the women's mid-card title, didn't they just introduced one in NXT, right? It all runs together for me. I'm pretty sure they did. But I think this is actually, look, injuries are never a good thing. But if there's anything that comes out of this that Triple H can do, he can at least start building up the mid-card on the women's side a little bit more, which you saw. There were, you think about it, like the two women's tag team matches they had on Raw. You had a lot of women in there, like Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, Chelsea Green, which I think Chelsea's very entertaining. Like, I know they put her on, and they've used her in all these spots, and of course she's gotten squashed by Jade and all that, but I think she's very entertaining. Like, they've got something with her that they can use. And so I think I'm curious to see how they build up kind of the mid-card level stars. Because Rhea's out of the picture now, as we know. Becky, we assume, is, we haven't seen her the past couple weeks. When Becky makes her return, I don't know exactly. But, yeah, so, like, they have an opportunity. And they're going to bring up some people from NXT, I would expect, too. You guys know I'm very high on Tiffany Stratton. I think she gets an even bigger push moving forward. And so there's a lot of people that I'm curious to see how they build up, especially after the draft. I feel like you have to remember, too, we're sort of in that holding pattern until we get to the draft. It feels like it's that way all the time. And so we'll see what carries over, what doesn't. But, yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with the rest of the division. So, that's the thing, Bearded Dragon. Like, it's just got to be the skill portion to where she can have a one-on-one match. Because, we've seen her have one-on-one matches, but they've just been total squash matches, right? Very simple, very basic. They've protected her, which, they should do, to make sure she, looks the best she can look coming out of every match. But at some point, it's going to have to be, you're going to be wrestling a 15-minute one-on-one match, and that's the level you have to get to if you're going to be featured in those kind of spots. Now, you could say, it's kind of the Goldberg thing, right? You could just have her just destroy everyone, and she doesn't have to wrestle for 15 minutes, and that's fine. But you just have to make it entertaining and put it in a, kind of a package deal there where the fans still get what they want out of it, and there are expectations to be at the top of a women's division that has been carried by Rhea Ripley, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, and so forth, right? So there are very high expectations in the ring of what you have to do, and I think that's where they have to get her to that level. But for now, it's okay. Like, there's no rush. They can sort of let this play out as long as they need to, because she's a star, and every time she's on the screen, she feels like a star. They've just got to continue to progress the in-ring stuff. So, I agree. She's improved for sure. Like, I think things look a lot more crisp. And look, I think that's just that's what Triple H, Shawn Michaels, all these guys, that's what I feel like, are really good at. They accentuate the strengths, they hide the weaknesses. And that's the whole point of like wrestling booking 101, right? It's like, just go out, present these people as stars, put them in the best possible light that you can, and then just let everything else come along as it does. Yeah. But anyways, so Bianca will have the title by next year, and she will be heel. Rhea will return to the Rumble, win it. Somehow Jade will figure it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there they could do with those three. I would feel pretty confident in betting on that combination. One of those three combinations: Rhea versus Bianca, Bianca versus Jade, Rhea versus Jade. I feel like there's a lot of combinations there. Like you said, maybe they do a multi-woman with those three. Because man, that's a lot of power in one match there with Rhea, Bianca, and Jade. So you could have quite maybe the most powerful triple threat match ever with those three. But yeah, I feel like that's where they're headed for next year. But now with the Rhea injury, you just don't know. You don't know what that changes. So, but I do feel pretty confident. Someone mentioned it earlier. I think when Rhea comes back, like she'll get that huge pop, right? Like they'll have to basically turn her. Not that they have pretty much already. Fans are already cheering her, but I think that will make it very clear. When Rhea makes the return on screen, she is going to get a huge ovation. And my guess is she has to come after Liv Morgan at some point. So maybe they do put the title on Liv. We'll find out, but she has to come after Liv because she's the one that did this, right? And so it is interesting how the dynamic sort of flipped. Liv's revenge tour was on Rhea because she got injured, and now Rhea's revenge tour is going to be on Liv because she got injured. So it is kind of ironic, I guess, how this whole thing played out. But yeah, so I'm curious what happens there. But yeah, it would be quite a match. I mean, you'd see a lot of power slams, a lot of presses. There'd be a lot of strength involved in that particular match for sure. So that would be something. But as always, I appreciate you guys joining here, having a fun discussion on a Tuesday morning, very early. But hey, we had to get our Raw reaction stream up, and of course, I'll have some more videos coming for you guys today at some point. Probably some shorts. Not a ton to talk about coming out of this Raw. We'll do it in some shorts and probably clip this a little bit, put some little standalone videos out for you guys. And also, if you haven't weighed in, which at this point, to be honest with you, even if you do weigh in, it's not going to change the vote. But if you go to the community tab, I put the poll out for this week's retro review. We're going to start doing those this week. 487 votes. 67% of you have voted for Backlash 1999. So a huge winner, like a runaway winner here for Backlash 99. Backlash 2001, 2002, 2003 were also in the pool. And someone did bring up Backlash 2000 in the comments. And we will do Backlash 2000 at some point, too. I think that's a fun show where you had Triple H versus The Rock there. So, yeah, that could be an interesting one as we look back on Backlash 99. Steve Austin and The Rock. Quite a match. I remember that one very fondly. So we'll review that show, start doing some retro reviews for you guys. If you enjoy it, let me know what kind of old school eras you enjoy the most in WWE. But yeah, Bearded Dragon, you have a great week as well. And again, we'll have a lot of fun stuff coming up this week here. Not as eventful in terms of our videos. You know, we're not be doing a lot of the mystery solving that we tried to do with the Bloodline and stuff leading into WrestleMania 40 with The Rock and Cody and all that. So videos may be a little more tame here right now, but that's okay. It's still, we got a lot of fun stuff to build to, as we know, and we'll have fun with it, of course, as always. So I appreciate you jumping in, as always. So, yeah, I think there's a good point, Cameron. I forgot to bring this up earlier, but it's like Liv last night, the promo Liv cut last night, I felt like I was more invested in Liv at that point than probably I have been in a long time because it seemed more natural based on the fact that she's playing off of an actual story, right? She's playing off the fact that Rhea got injured. So that is the realistic, aspect they can add to this where it makes it feel like, okay, I actually believe that Liv is somewhat satisfied with Rhea getting injured. And now she's saying, all right, don't blame me. I'm not the problem. Like, she's saying things that you actually believe. And I think that's always important. If you're looking, whether it's a heel, whether it's a babyface, like, say something that I actually can buy. Like, where it's not just something where I feel like it's, it's coming off a script, right? And so I thought it was a really good promo by Liv last night, and the crowd responded. And I think this gives her, kind of a new a new lease here to where she can go play around with this new character and have a lot of fun with it. Because hey, embrace being, I always say, right, it's easier to be the bad guy than the good guy, especially in this era. So go have fun with this thing, because now you can play into it, and knowing that you will be the central figure whenever Rhea comes back, and you may be on the wrong end of that, but that's great. That's going to get some heat on you. So yeah, I think it works out really well for Liv here to be able to see. And again, I don't know who they're going to put the title on, but all right, guys, anything else you have, let me know. We'll probably hop off here in just a minute. Like we said, I know not the most eventful edition of Raw, but I did want to make sure, as the completist in me, I wanted to make sure we did a show. That way you guys knew my thoughts on Raw for this week. But yeah, as we said, a lot of interesting stuff coming up. We know with the Bloodline on SmackDown. We'll see how this continues to progress. Jey Uso's getting his title shot against Damian Priest at Backlash. That will be interesting to see who factors in. To that, we mentioned Jacob Fatu. Is that where he debuts? Maybe cost Jey the title. How does Jimmy come back and get involved? The Usos come back together. All that. Jey kind of teased that a little bit here on this week's edition of Raw. So, yeah, it's a good point. Is the reset button at Mania or the draft? I feel like it's kind of half and half these days, isn't it? Like you have half of it comes right after Mania, where you get, a little bit more featured look at some of the people they're going to call up in the draft. Like we saw Dragunov, Roxanne Perez was on Raw. Tiffany Stratton, Braun Breaker were featured on SmackDown. So you start to get a little bit of that idea of where they're headed. But it really feels like until the draft, all this sort of doesn't not mean anything, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot because things don't really jumpstart until the draft. And I almost wonder, and maybe there's just a reason I'm not thinking of, like why they don't just do the draft like right after WrestleMania. Maybe not the night after, but the following week. And I know why, because it's the timing. The reason they do the draft is because the NFL draft, which the NFL draft is the final week of April. And so that's why they do it. That they try to do it there every year because they want to capitalize on the draft, a palooza. Like just they want to get all the draft hype. Same with the NFL, all that. So when they want to have their own kind of draft, but I just feel like it'd be better served just to do it right after WrestleMania instead of waiting a month. But like I said, I know why they do it, to try to capitalize on the NFL draft hype and all that. So, but I don't think it's necessary really, but I don't know. We'll see. Sky Breezy asks, do you think Roman is returning at SummerSlam? I think so, because I think I feel like that's where you do the 6-man tag that I've teased. I feel like that's what I think, my prediction. Is that you would do the 6-man there, Roman and the Usos versus Solo, Tama Tonga, Jacob Fatu. I feel like that is the direction you head in for SummerSlam. Because here's why I say that. Because I feel like that would be the first big match, right? That's the first big match. But remember, too, something to think about here, and I'm terrible at this, but they do have all these stadium shows, right? And, they've got the Berlin show that comes up right after SummerSlam. So like you've got to have big matches to, for some of these stadium shows too. But I think SummerSlam just makes the most sense because what you have to do is you have to get that 6-man tag if that's the direction they're going. Again, just a prediction on my part. Don't know if it's true. Just making a prediction. But you also have to do the Roman and Solo match at some point too. And then you could also do Roman and Tama Tonga, Roman and Jacob Fatu, which I signed me up for that one. But it's really how long, how many matches Roman going to be doing? Is he going to be doing all these matches? I mean, you don't have to do a Roman and Tama Tonga match. You don't have to do Roman and maybe Jacob Fatu, but I think you got to do Roman and Solo at some point. So all this to me is, really a lot of this I feel like is going to be, when are they doing the Rock and Roman? Because I feel like they have to do it at WrestleMania 41. Now, I know people said, well, they do Rock and Cody at WrestleMania 41, and then they do Rock and Roman at WrestleMania 42. That's a long time from now for The Rock. And like I said, he's only getting older from here. And so I don't know that you want to count on 2 years from now, The Rock and Roman doing a main event WrestleMania match and not knowing exactly where Rock's at that point physically. Knowing that this was probably a grind just to have a tag team match. One-on-one match, he's not going 45 minutes in that one. I can tell you that. But so I think a lot of it's going to depend on when they should bring Roman back, is when are they wanting to do the Rock and Roman? Because a lot of that, I think you at least have 2 matches for Roman before that you have to do. That's the 6-man tag and the one-on-one with Solo. Like, those are 2 matches that have to happen before The Rock. Like I said, if it would be a nice bonus if they do Tama Tonga, if they do Jacob Fatu, whatever. But I think those are the 2 that are musts. Like, you have to do the 6-man, you have to do Roman and Solo one-on-one. So maybe that's it. Or I don't see it. I saw somebody mention this. I don't see Roman and Solo as a WrestleMania 41 match, but hey, if you want to take Solo to the next level, you want to put him in that spot, and you feel confident about it, maybe that's how you hold off Roman and Rock till the next year. But I think that's the danger zone there. I don't think you should do that. So my guess is you still want to do Rock and Roman, and I think Roman coming back at SummerSlam to avenge the Usos or come back before to set up the SummerSlam match. Maybe that's how they do it. Okay, sorry, Calvin. I'll get back to a couple comments here after. I did not hear them say that, so that's my fault. I was playing catch up on Raw. I wasn't able to watch it live, so I was kind of zooming through commercials and probably missed a couple things here or there. Okay, well, if they're crowning a champ, then there you go. So, it's got to be Liv, right? It's got to be Liv. I mean, they got to capitalize and just make it Liv. So we'll see. So here's a question. So they've been doing all the teases with this. I don't know. Like that, it's going to be interesting. Like you got to, they've done the teases. Did anyone see the thing Matt Hardy put on Twitter last night? Like Matt Hardy was sort of teasing this thing too. So I don't know. I mean, Matt Hardy's not under contract with AEW anymore. I don't know if he's going to be added to the mix or anything, but it kind of took off, and people were speculating, could Matt Hardy be involved in this somehow? Of course, Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, Eric Rowan. I don't know if you guys have seen the news stuff, but Eric Rowan had to pull out of some independent obligations. By the way, my internet's going in and out, so if you guys, as always, give it a second. It'll come back. But Eric Rowan pulled out of some independent shows because he had new contractual obligations. So does that mean they're bringing Eric Rowan back? A lot of interesting possibilities there. So I think they've got to do this sooner because they've started to do the QR code and all this kind of stuff now. And I'll actually try to find the visual that came up. I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but they did put the visual up when you do the QR code or whatever. It sent you to a very interesting visual. And I'll try to find this in a second. But yeah, so I'm curious to see when they're going to do it. I mean, I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know what people are going to think of it, but they're definitely bringing back Uncle Howdy. We mentioned it in the Bray Wyatt documentary. They teased it at the very end after the credits, and now they've started doing all the screen, glitching, and now they do the QR codes and all. So it's going to be cool to see because, hey, I mean, with everything that's happened, give this man a shot. Like, give him a shot. See what Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, see what he can do here. I'm all for it. It's not going to be Bray Wyatt. We all understand that, but hey, let's see what happens here. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see how they do it. So, yeah, Hell in a Cell. That'd be great. That's a good point. Do the 6-man at Hell in a Cell. Wow, could you see those guys just beating the hell out of each other inside of Hell in a Cell? That's the way it should be because, the solo side of things. I mean, we're talking those guys just want to destroy everything in their path, right? So that'd be something. So, yeah, but. Rock and Roman, 41, Cody at SummerSlam. Yeah, that's been my guess from the start. Because I know you guys saw the video I did yesterday. Rock teasing, he's looking ahead to next WrestleMania. But I'm like, I know your story, Rock. I know you like to, tease this, but I know you're up to something. I think you got to do Cody and Rock at SummerSlam. I don't think you can drag that out a whole year. But we'll see. We'll find out because it really depends on the Rock schedule, right? And training for a match takes a while. And SummerSlam, less than 4 months away now? Maybe around 4 months, I guess. So is that enough time between the movie stuff that he's shooting and all that? I don't know. So, yeah, it makes the most sense to do it that way. But Cody and Rock does feel like a WrestleMania match at this point, right? And so maybe they don't want to do it at SummerSlam. Maybe they're like, you know what? We're good with these two matches, but yeah, it's tough because if you're banking on The Rock to do the next two WrestleManias, like I said, it is just, he's getting older. And I just don't know if you can bank on The Rock not getting injured for the next two WrestleManias. I mean, he said yesterday he was fine, banged up, hurting, but no injuries, which is a big step in the right direction based on the last time he wrestled a full match. But yeah, I don't know. That's a big risk, I think. But it's The Rock, and if you're willing to take that risk for the exposure and all that, hey, we'll see. So, hey, Uncle Howdy, he never got a chance. So, we didn't really know because they never got to probably the biggest part of the story they wanted to get to with Uncle Howdy. And so, you never really, got sort of the payoff with that. So, we'll find out. And too, like I said, the motivation will be much different now based on, everything that happened. And so, I think they know if they're going to do this, they want to do this the right way. They want to take care of every little tiny thing that they need to, detail-wise, to make sure this is a proper sort of, tribute, whatever you want to call it. So I feel confident. They would not do this just to do it. I feel like they have an idea, and again, we'll see how they execute it. They're already getting started, and we'll see where it goes. So, yeah, hello. That was the putting all that stuff out. Like, yeah, it's different, right, for wrestling. But you guys, I love solving the mysteries. Like, it's always been the investigative part of me, I guess. So I like this kind of stuff. It's different for wrestling. Like, I get it, but give me something for everyone. And this is something that, is different with this kind of stuff. So I appreciate that, Russell. Yeah, new subscriber. I really appreciate the kind words. I do. And again, I started this thing, back in January, and I just started because I'm like, hey, I want to talk wrestling just like I do with my friends. Like, hey, I just want to talk wrestling with people, and that's kind of what we do here. It's just like a hangout. Like, that's the way I see this. Like, I'm not here to tell you that everything I say is right or that I'm never wrong about anything. I'm just making predictions. I'm having fun. Like, hopefully that's what you guys enjoy about this, because I don't take this too seriously. Like, I just enjoy talking about wrestling. I've been a wrestling fan for a long time, and yeah, like, certainly this era is a lot more exciting to talk about than some of the more recent ones have been. So yeah, like, I'm just like, hey, let's go talk wrestling with people all around the world, and that's what's fun about this. So yeah, we love doing it. So I'm glad you appreciate the videos, and yeah, a lot more fun stuff on the way. So yeah, hey, I appreciate the kind words there too. Yeah, it's fun. So I know I'm not great at replying to comments too, because I'll be honest, my mind is like one where I'm like, I'm already on to the next video. I'm like, all right, how do I get another great video for these guys? Like, I'm working on it, so I'm terrible at responding to comments. That's what makes the live stream great, because my work schedule and all that. I'm like, man, I got to catch up on comments, and I look up and there's like 100 of them. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm terrible at this. So so I do the best I can, but I appreciate you guys. The live streams are what makes it fun, because I actually get to interact with you guys in this setting. So hey, SummerSlam on your birthday. What would be the greatest birthday present you could get on SummerSlam? So if you had to, so it falls on your birthday. If you had to pick one thing that WWE gives you as the best gift you could get, Cameron, on your birthday, what is it? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. So, oh yeah, here's a good point. James, I forget about the Saudi Arabia show. And man, I keep looking at their schedule, and they have a packed schedule. So let me pull this up here. So they got Backlash on the 4th. Then they've got King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring on May 25th. And then, like, man, these shows are stacked. Clash at the Castle on June the 15th. And then Money in the Bank is on July 6th, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, so like SummerSlam is on August 3rd. Clash at the Castle is August 31st. They have got a wild schedule coming up over there. So they got a lot of big main events to push. I just think The Rock's going off to make that Mark Kerr buyout. Like, I think he's doing that now, right? So I don't know. That could be challenging maybe to do it, but Cody's got to have a big match there if it's not The Rock. I always, again, the schedule, man, they have got a lot of big shows. We said stadium shows. They have got a full slate over the next several months. So they got to build some big matches. And maybe, I mean, I don't know. Do they do Cody, and if it's not Rock, do they do Cody and Solo maybe? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of possibilities there, I guess, for what they could do. Because, I mean, you guys give me your prediction. It's got to be AJ beating LA Knight, right? They do Cody and AJ at Backlash. And then, yeah, that's the question. And that's always the challenge. We said this, like, the thing Vince struggled with, you didn't have a lot of great babyface title runs as the world champ, because sometimes they had just not built up a lot of believable challengers. But I think here, there's a lot of people you can work with. Gunther, we think, is going to be the guy in Berlin, but that's not till August 31st. So, I mean, but Gunther's got to come back too soon, right? So, I don't know. Like, I'm interested to see where they go with this, because you do have to have some pretty big matches lined up for some of these stadium shows. And especially, again, that's a big one, as we know. So, but it is King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring, so maybe they focus more on that instead of like the actual World Championship thing. So, yeah, I mean, Cody needs The Rock. Like, I wish they could do Cody and The Rock now, but yeah, they had to leave us on a tease there. So, yeah, so. Hey, any advice on making your channel into a WWE channel? I mean, like I said, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm terrible at giving advice, but I would say just talk about the stuff that you enjoy, because that is something that someone told me a long time ago where it really resonated with me. I'm like, you guys know, if you're on the internet, I mean, what's the percentage of the internet that is just pure negative and everything's the worst and all this? Like, to me, it's like, I don't want to be that. I just want to sit here and talk about stuff that I enjoy. And that's why I told you guys before, people have asked, like, why don't I cover AEW the way I cover WWE? I'm like, because I just don't enjoy it as much right now. And so, like, I'm not, I'm like, hey, I don't want to do something where I sound like I'm coming across as like I hate this or I don't like this. I want to just talk about the stuff I enjoy, because I think that spreads the most, goodwill, and I think those are the most interesting discussions. I don't want to just come out and say, you know what, that was the worst show I've ever seen, and just talk about that for an hour. Like, I don't want to do it. So that's the luxury, I guess, of like having your own channel. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and I would say just talk about the stuff you enjoy, because there's plenty of negativity on the internet, to where we don't have to have more of that, probably. So I think we've met the quota for the world when it comes to the negativity on the internet sometimes. So I like to have fun and talk about stuff I like. That's why, and I know this won't be everyone's cup of tea, but it's like, that's why I like excited to do some of the retro stuff, because I like going back and looking at these old shows and being like, wow, that was a great show, or wow, that era really did not age well. So I'm curious with Backlash 99. I've already watched the show, so like I can already tell you kind of initial thoughts, but some of that stuff on the show, I'm like, woo, 99 was an interesting year. And there were not some things on there that would probably age that well on today's edition of WWE Raw. Let me just say that. So, yeah. But, yeah, the Chad thing is interesting, because I think what they did is they turn him heel now, and I feel like it's one of those where, and I thought Cole said it best. If you go back and watch the replay, Cole said it best on commentary, and I don't remember the exact wording he said, but he's really pushing. This caused Chad Gable to finally snap, because he's had all these opportunities. He talked about doing this for his daughter, all this stuff, and yet he came up short again. And he's now seeing Sami being the one that gets to be celebrated in his hometown. And so it hits at Gable's ego a little bit. And so I think it made sense to turn him heel, but he's got to win it at some point. And maybe that's the payoff here, is like knowing that at some point they're going to give him the title. And I think he has to be the one to beat Sami, because that's how you get the most heat, right? Gable now turning, and maybe they do the rematch as soon as Backlash. But remember, Bronson Reed's going to be factored into this thing too, and that's what I forgot about. I'm like, Bronson Reed's standing there with Gable, and he already has the win over Sami. So they're gonna, maybe they do a triple threat. But I think Gable, he's got to win this title sooner rather than later. But they're clearly setting him up now to do it. Now that they're doing the heel turn, they're giving a little more character. And so yeah, I think Gable's gonna win the title, but if he wins the title in Montreal like that could have been something. You want to talk about the heat, right? I think in the Vince days, Vince would have made him the champion there. And but maybe he'll still get that opportunity. But now at least he loses, but at least he gets a little bit of a different direction with the character. So I said earlier, I think Gable beats Sami at some point. I think Sheamus is the one that wins the title from Gable down the road, because I think Sheamus still needs that Intercontinental Championship for his career resume, and I think Triple H would give him that. So that's my guess, is how you get to Gable winning the title, but also I think maybe Sheamus is the guy that takes the title off of him for one last run for the Celtic Warrior. So we'll find out. But, hey, I appreciate that, Lester. Yeah, I really do. Yeah, that's what I try to do. Like, it's just talking wrestling with friends. That's what I've always enjoyed the most. I'm not the hot take guy. I'm not the guy that, likes to go out and say, hey, listen to me because I am right about everything. That's just not me. You guys know that after watching my videos. So I just feel like I'm looking into the camera and I'm just talking to my friends. Like, that's how I've always viewed it. So yeah, that's why I appreciate you guys. So yeah, the little details matter. That's the Triple H era. So it's always about the little details, and that's what he does best, I think. That's one of the strengths for sure with Triple H running things, is they don't let go of those little bitty details that really matter in the grand scheme of things, that really gets you hooked on certain matches and storylines and all that stuff. So, all right, guys, I'm going to hop off here. We've almost gone an hour. Always a fun discussion with you guys. Like I said, if you're joining late here, We will mostly try to do these night of, so right after Raw, after SmackDown. We're going to plan to do this after SmackDown on Friday. But some weeks I'll have to do it the next morning like this, and yeah, so it makes for a fun discussion either way. And before you head out, as always, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out as well. Remember, you can vote in the poll for, it's not going to matter. Like I said, Backlash 99 is going to be the winner. If you want to start doing the retro review stuff. And also, as always, leave your comments. What other stuff do you want to see here on the channel? I'm always looking for ideas from you guys, what you want to see more of. And yeah, I'm always interested in seeing, what you guys think. And I appreciate all the kind words. You can also join if you want to join the membership tier. That's $2.99 a month. All that is basically just donating to the channel. That helps me make more videos. We've had probably quite a few people already join that, so I appreciate that from you guys. And again, we will have a lot more videos on the way. Probably some YouTube shorts going up today based off of some of our reaction from Raw and some other stuff as well. So again, appreciate you guys watching as always. Great discussion, and I'll talk to you again here soon at Wrestling Reaction.